What's up with it?
What's
What's up
up? What's
with
up,
it?
y'all? We back.
We
We
back.
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 We in
An-
there. I
Another
need to do my
session.
two step yet.
No, we don't need you doing your two step. You missed that. You missed that opportunity
Right. We're gonna get
already. So
back.
I mean,
that's gone.
I
That
figured I wouldn't do it today. I'm trying to be a professional today.
that ship has sailed, sir.
Absolutely.
Well, we'd like to welcome y'all to episode 128 of Beautiful Mind. We are here with two wonderful mental health professionals. We got some good information for y'all on this episode. Mental health awareness is the month of May, so what better way to close it out than with some information for you all to take with you for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
especially the rest of the year, the rest of your life, because so many of you need this information, and we just want to make sure that you got it. So we
Now, if
want.
they look familiar, they have been on the show before.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it did a dope set. Y'all go check that one out. All in my mind. That one was dope. It was great. But we had to bring them back because they just did such an amazing job. It's like, look, listen, Ken, we got to have both of them back. The same two. We got to have them back. They,
Both,
they they
both
become,
of them.
staples, so to speak.
It's
Like Benji
Mental
say,
Health
both of them.
Awareness Month. Mental Health
Both of them.
Awareness Month.
Yeah. Hmm.
So y'all know how we get started. We got to check on our people, and we also want them to introduce themselves. So before we even get started, ladies, Angel Adams, introduce yourself to the people. Let them know what you're all about, because we see you got a lot of alphabets behind your
Yeah.
name, and I'm pretty sure those people are wondering what all that stuff is.
I
She went
know.
to school for a long time.
She went to school,
I
school.
did. I'm done. I don't think I'm going back. Okay. Forget all of that. So, hello, everyone. I am Angel L.A. Adams, and I am a psych mental health nurse practitioner. And I have my Bachelor of Arts in Journalism, love to write. So, but my main thing is mental health in my field. And basically, what I do is I prescribe medications. I do also provide therapy at times. And that's just my whole thing, just take care of my patients' mental health as a whole. So, that's what I do.
Solid. You said LA, so you know what I'm saying. That
Yeah,
that caught
LA,
my attention. You know what
that
I'm
represents
saying.
my middle name. Yes. All the black parents was putting La, so I'm La Amber. Uh,
Oh, like, aren't you glad they didn't do something crazy like Ladashe or something like that?
well, I think La Amber is kind of crazy.
Not what that is.
Lord have mercy.
I've never heard of that before. That's a new one for me.
I
I
think she thought it was
mean,
French or something. I don't know.
you can cover all of that up with them wonderful letters and degrees behind that.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's dope. That now we get an understanding of what those letters stand for, and y'all gonna understand what those letters all about
That
with the
means she
knowledge.
legit.
Yeah, with the knowledge that she's about to bestow
Yes.
upon y'all. All right, Miss Lauren Pierre, talk to the people. Let them know what y'all about. Who is Lauren Pierre?
She ain't Rick Ross no more. Hey boy, I tell
This
you.
guy.
Leave her alone.
If you all were on here the last time I was here, I was still recovering, so I was giving you some deep Rick Ross vibes with a good whooping cough, but I'm better now. So I'm Lauren Pierre, and I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia. I also have certifications in addiction as well as trauma. And I currently have my own virtual private practice where I offer individual therapy and group therapy.
Awesome. Yeah. Georgia. How's the weather in Georgia right now?
It is beautiful. It's
Yeah.
not too hot yet. We're going to get there, but it's not too
Mhm.
hot yet. It's perfect.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. All right. I might have, Georgia might be on the list this year to go check it out. So,
All right, so we gotta check on my people though. You know what I'm saying? The cast of the show, Trisha Michelle, welcome back this week. How are you feeling today, ma'am?
oh
I'm
Lord.
good. Busy, busy, busy weeks. I'm doing what? The unpacking, but also packing
Mm.
to leave for a trip. So I'm gonna need a therapist when I'm done. Because I feel like I'm everywhere, but I'm good. Like I'm excited. Right now my mind is on vacation, but I got 3 work days left
Yeah.
before I can really go.
And I'll say this,
Out of here.
while she says she's everywhere, she means literally everywhere. When she goes on her vacation, she be all over the place. And as the
that's
saying
true.
goes, she's everywhere and you're never there. Because a lot of the places she goes, you probably ain't going to be able to go, brother and sister out there. So keep working, keep pressing toward the mark, and go to her IG page and check out all her pictures, and you can live vicariously through her and all her travels.
Yes, go to her YouTube. Y'all already mess with her day and night, all day, every day. So it's all right.
The story's about to go up.
That's what's up. Benji Banks, the man, the brand. Talk to us, man. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. You know what I'm saying? Like I was anticipating. I'm waiting for this show. Couldn't wait for this one to get started. But overall, man, shoot, man, it's the grind. Have you ever just been doing a whole bunch of stuff? Then you just take like 2, 3, 4 days off, and your body be like, "Hey, man, what we doing?"
That's a lot of days. That's why.
I mean, when you're just used to going, going to college or doing all the things, your body take a little rest. You be like, "Hey, man, why we ain't up?" So that's the space I'm in now. So just going, and then you stop for a few days. But other than that, man, everything is Gucci. Everything is straight.
We are creatures of habit. So when we change things up, our body and our mind is like, wait a minute, what are we doing?
Like, what's going on, man? Like, why we ain't up at 4 a.m. today?
Yeah, and that's interesting that you say that because I think, and maybe our lovely professionals can answer these type of questions, but I think that has something to do with your mental health as well. When people go through a lot of change, you know what I'm saying, especially drastic changes in their lives and drastic things they have to switch up. It kind of offsets the balance of things a little bit. So, I don't know. Maybe that's the case, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
I know we do. I be feeling exhausted mentally. So I know.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to talk about it. Some of us got hectic lives, and we think living hectic lives is normal. So we'll see. We'll see.
Or think it means progress.
Right. That one. We fool ourselves. we got to tell ourselves that's what it is so we can keep.
Right. If you feel like you ain't did nothing, you ain't did nothing.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe that's it. Maybe we're just conditioned to certain types of struggle per se, and because we're conditioned to it, it's a norm for us, even though it's not supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what happens to a lot of people too. Like,
I know it's happened to me because I got some questions when we get deeper into it about some specific things, but we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna get into it because we need to wrap our minds around everything that's going on around us. For sure.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to start really, really basic for the people to make sure that they have a clear understanding of what we're talking about when we talk about mental health awareness. What is mental health? Angel Adams, talk to us about what mental health is.
Well, I like to put it in terms so you can kind of compare. You think about the physical health, you think about anything on the body, organs like your heart, kidney, anything like that, right? So switch that to the psyche, like what's in your brain, what you can't really see, touch and things like that. It's just the health of the mind. It's really that simple. It's not complicated.
Okay.
So, and there's just different forms of it. There's healthy mental health and there's bad mental health, So that's really it. Mm-hmm.
I think people don't see don't feel like the healthy side of it. You know what I'm saying? When the people hear mental health, I think their mind automatically goes to mental illness, and it's like kind of tied in with each other. And it's two different things we're talking about when we talk about mental health and then the mental illness piece of it, right? So, Lauren, can you talk about that for a minute, like the difference between what mental health and mental illness is?
Yeah, sure. So if you take what Angel said and you think of mental health as being all the things that help you think, feel, and move with well-being, right? So, but to her point, there are different types of mental health. So anything related to your physical health is actually related to your mental health. Anything related to emotional well-being is related to your mental health. The same with spiritual well-being is related to your mental health. So mental illness would mean there's something that's disrupted in those areas of your life. If there's mental illness and you look inward towards what's going on with me mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, then it gives you an indication of the potential of a mental illness. Now, of course, there are more research-based and chemical brain-related issues that also go into that definition of mental illness. But whatever is happening in the brain is spilling over to other parts of your life.
Right.
So some people, they see the disruption in other parts of their lives before they recognize it in the brain. But all of that is connected.
So what can cause some mental illnesses? Are people born with these? Like, because I'm sure there's a diagnosis you can give and medicines and so forth. What are some of the causes of what we would call a mental illness?
I guess I'll start. So you can absolutely be born with a mental illness. There's some, such as bipolar and schizophrenia, where it's more likely that if a family member has it, you're more apt to obtain it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. Your environment, what you're exposed to. For instance, let's just say someone in the military. They go and they experience all of these things that's very traumatic to them. They have kills, or they've seen it, or they've seen people get raped, or they've done it, whatever, they can develop some type of anxiety disorder right then that maybe they didn't have, when they were born or when they were growing up. It's just the environment that they were put in allowed them to now develop this type of illness. So those are two different ways that you can be exposed to having mental illnesses.
I mean, so some of us growing up in these terrible drug cultures wasn't healthy for us, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I know somebody bipolar schizophrenic from drugs, and then bipolar schizophrenic inherited from,
right.
From the mom side.
That's another thing. There is a such thing as drug-induced psychosis or mental health illnesses. Absolutely. So drugs can do it as well.
Right. And so knowing those things right there, why do you think it's so hard for many of us to adjust to a healthy mental health lifestyle? Why would you think that would be?
I don't answer that.
Either one. I mean, I'm gonna throw them out there. You guys just take it and run with it.
Yeah. Well, it's just in general, it's hard to do things that are good for you. Think about the foods. A lot of foods that are not good for you taste really, really good.
No.
So, honey buns. Hey. Dr. Pepper. Hey.
Yes, in mental health, you have to practice things that maybe you don't have time for. Mindfulness, that takes effort, that takes being present. Maybe you can't be present. You have a lot of things going on, so it's just in a world that we live in that's busy, do this, do that. And it's not always the good things that are presented to you. All of this you're taking in, and all of this has to do with your mental health. So it doesn't make it very easy. And then on top of that, let's talk about the stigmatizations that comes with it. No one wants to be labeled as crazy, and that's still out there. You go get therapy, something's wrong with you. What's wrong with you? Or, so in other words, it's just better to put that off and not deal with it versus facing your psychological needs.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Because I'll be at work. I work at Kaiser, and I'll have someone call in for something, and I'll say, I'm calling to book therapy. And I'm like, okay, is it physical therapy or, mental health, that type of therapy? And they'll say, and they'll get real low, psychiatry. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay. But for me, I know, there's a healthy, it's not bad. So I'm like, in my head, like, okay. But I can tell, that stigma that's out there, people associate it with a negative thing, or that they're not okay, or people would think or judge them in a certain way, because it very much does exist in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Angie, can I add something to that question? You had asked what makes it difficult to adjust to a healthy well-being and stuff like that.
Yes.
I wanted to add some things. Number one, environment plays a huge role. If my environment is contributing to my mental illness and I'm still in it, it makes it very difficult to do something different and treat it. So, for example, if I have a client that's referred to me because of trauma, and let's say the trauma is related to domestic violence, but they are still in the relationship and still living with that person, it is very difficult to find a balance in your mental health and well-being. It's very difficult to treat that person for trauma when they are still in the traumatic experience.
Right.
Another really difficult hurdle for managing that would be reluctance to take medication. So medication is also very taboo. And the reality is there are just some symptoms that we need them to be stabilized before you can even engage in therapy, before you can even adopt the new behaviors that will help you have a healthier state of mind and a healthier well-being. And a lot of clients are reluctant to take medication, and rightfully so, because there are some side effects we would just rather not experience.
Rather not deal with, right? I was just going to ask that, because some people, the stigma is, well, this is going to create this, so why would I add that to it? How do you get someone to kind of get over that thought process? Because everybody believes they know what's good for themselves, right?
I try to think of a holistic view. I try to meet the client where they are. If they want to try some holistic options, I will research that for them. But as a professional, I'm always going to give them my professional opinion and say, I think you should really consider trying a psychotropic med or trying a med to just get you to a manageable baseline so that you can really engage in this. And this is where they might need to be referred to Angel, or they might need to be referred to a psychiatrist to really talk about what medications make sense for their brain chemistry. But it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Definitely, because the crazy part is I'm in my 40s, and I think just in my 40s I started hearing about mental health, the severity of it. So I can imagine for someone who is older than me, or maybe hasn't really heard about it. So this is kind of new to a degree to a lot of us.
Yeah.
So I think my question kind of fits in here in this area. But so my question is, for an individual who, so say you're telling a friend, like, I think you should seek out therapy, or, psychiatry, mental health, and look into that for help in life, right? And they're like, no, I don't even like opening up to anyone as it is, let alone a therapist or a psychiatrist. I don't want to open up to somebody I don't know about my personal business. So that's their hurdle that they can't get over. How do you help an individual who has this wall up when it comes to even just want to be open to a therapist to share their personal lives with, when they feel like this person doesn't know anything about me, and who are you?
Angel, you want to respond to that first?
Yeah, I will. So I think the number one thing is, if that person is talking to you, then obviously you're someone that hopefully they trust. And so you need to make sure you support that person. And like Lauren was talking about, meeting a person where they are, that's very important. You cannot push a person to therapy. And as a friend who probably isn't a professional anyway, you just got to kind of go with what and how they're feeling. Provide them what you can, whatever resources you can help them with. If it's like, okay, hey, you don't want to go to therapy right now, well, let's talk and let's maybe set some goals together. We can talk about this like every week, or I can provide you with some resources. We can look up some things, and maybe you can get more comfortable, because I feel that you need to seek some type of professional help, whatever that is, whether that is a therapist, or there are groups, or don't forget that there are coping skills that also help you when you're in a mental crisis.
Right.
Such as, and it sounds real cliche-ish, but exercise does help. Like,
It does.
it's a natural endorphin, like, that presents itself to you and can help you be happy and take away the anxiety and mindfulness, like I mentioned earlier. There's apps, so just hold that person's hand and just kind of use your instincts to, just walk the way with them and not be super pushy. That never helps. So that's what I would say.
Do you recommend self-help books, researching that, starting there, like maybe if they're trying to find some advice, but they're like, I'm gonna read a book. Like, do you recommend that?
It's like so hard because I can't say yes, can't say no. I'm not really big on self-help books, to be totally honest with you. But it does help some people. So what would it hurt to mention that to them? That could be something that could help them. So I would say absolutely say it. Yes.
Okay.
Lauren?
See that?
I think word of mouth and good press is a great first line of defense. So if you are the friend who has not gone to therapy yet, but you all know someone, you have a mutual friend, or you know someone who has, it's always good to talk to somebody who has been in therapy, and they can share with you what it was like for them. So I think in terms of our community, I think that's part of what got Black people interested in therapy is somebody knew somebody that knew somebody.
That's
right. Somebody looked like us, maybe.
Right. And they felt more comfortable. So they said, you know what, there's people out here that look like us and they know what they're talking about. And I tried it and I feel like it's helping me. So whenever you can recommend or refer somebody to say, hey, I know such and such, maybe they can suggest someone or they can tell you what it was like for them. That's always a great start. As far as self-help books, same response, I think is a good first line of defense. But a book is not therapy.
Right.
Therapy is a relationship. It is a verb. It's an action word. And it is dynamic, meaning it's happening between two people. It's energetic. So unfortunately, a book can't really take you there. A book can't push you past your plateau. A book can't help you hear things and see things that you can't hear or see. I tell my clients all the time, we're not working magic, but what we're doing is we're listening to you better than you're listening to yourself sometimes.
That's good.
So you need to have that relationship to really read between the lines, if I'm being honest.
Which that kind of leads into the question I was going to ask is what is the difference between a therapy session conversation and just your day-to-day conversations about what you're going through? Is there a huge difference there? Because I'm sure there is.
Yeah, so with my particular license and my certifications, I had to learn particular techniques and interventions to actually use with certain issues.
Right.
So let's take, for example, my two certs, one is in addiction and one is in trauma. There are very specific techniques that I had to be trained on, or whether I chose to be trained on, to use that intervention in therapy. So with trauma, we're not just talking. There's a very particular technique I'm using to address this issue, and it doesn't look like talk therapy. The same thing with treating addiction. I went through training to actually familiarize myself with particular curriculums, understanding the disease of addiction, familiarizing myself with the different approaches, the 12-step model versus the disease model. So a lot of people, and I think you just opened up a box that we're going to unpack a little bit, but I think a lot of people really do think that therapy is just talking. Talking is the foundation. It is.
Right.
It is. There is a lot of talking, but beyond talking, there's another skill set that I have to have. And that's not the same thing as us just shooting the breeze and kicking the shit while we're on the phone.
Exactly. Because I think some people, because there's a cliche out there that, if you just talk to a friend or talk to someone, I literally think that, there's a big difference there because you guys are professionals. Like, you know where to take me or where to draw my mind to or what help I could, which I'm totally oblivious to. And so I think that should be discussed because there's a totally different narrative there. It opens up a different narrative than just us having conversation. Pillow talk, as Ken talked about.
Yeah, it's definitely not the same.
Right.
Well, another situation too you got to look at is you said friends. A lot of these folks they talking to people that aren't really their friends either. So
Right.
that's
Right.
that's where the problem starts.
Or the
And
friend
that's
need
their
help
friends
too.
crazy too.
Yeah, the friend need help too.
Yeah, that too. Um,
Yep.
I, I was gonna add to the last piece that we talked about. One of the biggest things too is like you said, the word of mouth advertising and talking to people about like maybe your own personal experiences. And I think the biggest thing that I took away from going to therapy initially was coping. I learned a lot of coping, what they call, I guess, coping mechanisms or things that I could do on a day to day basis to, when I'm, met with these challenges that I had before, how do I deal with them without having to pick up the phone and call my therapist every time something happens? How can I deal with this on my own? And those are the type of things that you learn doing therapy as well. You learn how to deal with these situations so that you won't have, as many issues going forward. You're still going to have some issues. And, some people can go to therapy for a certain amount of time and they can kind of like the bird, learn how to fly on their own and they'll be okay. And some people it's ongoing, it's continuous. That there's no set time frame for it because you have to know when that time is. And I guess from talking to professionals such as yourselves, you'll give that window of, okay, look, this is where we at and we feel like you're good, you can fly on your own or you need more time with me. So
Yeah.
it is that kind of what you see from your side as well?
Yes, absolutely.
And
Okay.
I
Now,
do
what
it.
gets funny is the clients who don't want to stop coming to therapy. Like at some point, I have to discharge you. Your treatment plan is
No,
measurable
you're
as
good. You're good.
goals.
You're
You know,
fine.
I'm not meant to just be hanging with you for the rest of your life in some cases.
Well, now you're their friend. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But you know what it reminds me of? I don't know if y'all are on TikTok, but you all seen that video with the young guy who's talking about, I didn't say I'm healed, I'm healing.
Mm.
To imply I'm not done yet.
I ain't there
I know
yet.
I'm still working on me. When he made the video, he was pretty much implying like I'll still go off on you. But I split it and I kind of addressed it like sometimes you get clients who they're not ready to stop yet because they have found it so helpful. And
Yeah.
some of that might be fear. They might be afraid of can I really do this on my own? But we're there for a short time, not a long time.
Long.
To the angel's point, there are some diagnoses where you might need more long-term care. They might be more acute.
So, Angel, how do you, when a client, I would hate to call it success rate, but I guess maybe that's the right word to use. How do you know when you've addressed their psychological needs? How do you know that this is, you know what? I think you are good at this point. How do you know that? Because you're the professional and they have a need. They've come to you. How do you know, when can you say, you know what? I think we've met your psychological needs for over this span. How do you know when that has been met?
Right. Well, I think my territory is a little different because a lot of times I'm doing the medication. So
Right.
as long as my name is on something, I'm seeing my patients. Well, if I feel like they're okay every 3 months. Now,
Right.
sometimes, I have to see them in 2 weeks or I might have to see them in a week or a month. But if I'm prescribing you medications, then every 3 months we're checking in.
Right.
That's just that. Now, there are patients, usually my ADHD patients. Those are probably the ones where I can sometimes give a little bit more leeway. Like, okay, I know you're good. You're not really having any depressive issues because a lot of times that diagnosis does come with high anxiety and even depression, because it's a
Yeah.
cyclical thing. You
Right.
can't focus. Your life is all over the place. You're frustrated, you're anxious. So a lot of times those diagnoses do run together, but it's just really kind of hard to be finished. But let me tell you what I do experience a lot.
Right.
I experience my patients are on cloud nine. Okay. Medication's been working great for like a year or so. So now they want to see what life is without the medication. I'm all for it. Like if that's really what you want to do, I'm going to tell you what could happen, which about 95% of the time, you're going to say this wasn't a good decision.
Oh.
And you're going to come back. But I give my patients the idea that they do technically run this. You know, I'm here to give my professional advice and to walk you through this and be here for you and do what I need to do. But ultimately, you're the boss. You want to get off this medication, you're feeling great. Let's do it. So I'm for it, you know, wean them off. And like I say, about, 2 or 3 months later, like, this wasn't a good idea.
Right.
So it's really, it's just ongoing for me. They usually just fall off on their own. It's not where I'm like, okay, sayonara, goodbye. I'm not going to see you again. That's just not really it, because I'm not therapy heavy in my practice.
Right.
So yeah, so that's probably more Lauren for her.
Same question, Lauren, because you kind of addressed it a little bit there as well.
Repeat the question again.
Well, how do you know when that client that you have, you've addressed or you've met their psychological need?
So typically there should be a treatment plan, right? So when the client is starting therapy, we'll identify what are your goals for treatment? What are you going to get out of this experience? What are you looking forward to seeing changed or improved? And I'll help them make those. I'm sorry?
I said, that's exactly what they said.
Yeah, because we all got the same script. It's the same jargon. We all got the same jargon. But we'll ask them, okay, how realistic is this? We have to help them make it smart, right? Mm-hmm. So it's got to be specific. It's got to be measurable, attainable, realistic, and it's got to be time specific. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a time frame that I start with anyway, based on how acute your symptoms are and how much time you need. So periodically, very similarly, actually, to Angel's timeline, where she does the med assessment every 3 months. Every 3 months, I'm probably giving you the same assessment from your intake to see if any of your symptoms have changed. So depending on the intake I give you at the beginning, you're going to describe things at a certain intensity and a certain frequency. At 3 months, we're going to do that intake again to see if anything has changed. As long as things are improving, we're going to keep using the treatment plan as is. We're going to keep using the interventions. So we'll get to a point where when I do that check-in at the 6 month, 3 month, 6 month, 9th month, if we feel like the goal, and when I say we, it is myself and the client because we're working together. If we feel like this goal has been met, then that goal is achieved.
Right.
And as we go down your list of goals, as you achieve them, we'll see how close we are to terminating treatment. Now, in that process, clients could come up with a new goal. And that's fair because stuff just comes up in therapy, things that you might not have even realized were an issue. So if you come up with a new goal at the 3rd month, then we'll add it. But that treatment plan is really guiding what I'm doing with you and how long I'm going to do it with you. Because then once you feel like you've achieved your goals, and that's when you got to go out there like the bird
and fly.
Use everything that I gave you and see how you do.
I like that. I
want to mention something too, though. What people, I have people talk about this all the time too with the medication piece. And I want to make sure people understand that, just like any other medication, the medication that you will receive, if you're having, anxiety, depression and things, it comes in different dosages, right? Mm-hmm. So, generally, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but most doctors will start you out at a lower dose. It just depends on, how your assessment is. And then, in, like you said, the 3 to 6 months or a couple of weeks, whatever that time frame is, you come back, you get reevaluated and say, okay, what's the medication? Are you having any side effects? Things of that nature. And then you can say, okay, well, it seems like it's working at that dosage, or it seems like it may not be working. Let's take you up another notch, because I think people don't know enough about that piece of it. And that's another reason why they're so afraid of it.
Right. Yeah. That's why I'm very heavy on education as well. I let them know the time frame isn't like this might take 4 to 8 weeks to really get in your system and get to working. Be patient. These side effects, yeah, they might come, but let's give it a few weeks. Your body has to get used to it. And I feel like I have the solution to anything. I have a very high success rate with my patients. There's too many things out here to try to get my patients to be well. And so I reassure them that we are going to improve your symptoms. Yeah, it's just going to happen. So that's how I like to operate.
Okay. And I
And
got
I'm
one.
sure in that process, sometimes you get people who try to use their own coping mechanisms, right?
Yep. Uh-huh. Like
Yeah.
drugs and alcohol
Mm-hmm.
and
What
sex.
what is the term for that? I'm sure in you guys' field, there's a term when people switch to that, trying to cope, do it on
Yes.
their own. What do they call that?
Mal
Self-medicating.
or maladaptive coping skills. Yeah, as well.
But let me say something because I don't want to invalidate that for anybody that's listening, because somebody could be listening and they're like, I don't care what y'all say, this helps me better than any prescription does, and it doesn't have nearly as many symptoms. And I hear you. I understand what that is, especially for people living with anxiety
Mm.
who choose THC to manage.
Yeah.
Smoke weed or whatever,
Right.
right?
I was trying to be
Yeah.
real professional.
No,
But y'all-
because you got to give black folks you got to talk to black folk, right?
Right. Straight no chaser, straight no chaser.
Right.
So I don't want to invalidate that because that experience is real. You can't deny that people do not have the same symptoms they get from the same side effects you get from prescription medication, and they feel like it works faster. Like Angel said, a lot of the medications take about 6 weeks and sometimes 8 weeks to really build up in your system. Somebody living with anxiety who says, well, I can smoke a blunt real quick and in about 15 minutes, I'm gonna feel better.
Yes.
I'm not gonna tell a client that you're wrong. That's not, I can't say that to you. What I have to do in terms of meeting people where they are again is talk about how long have you been using this as a coping skill?
Mhm.
And have you ever actually learned how to manage the triggers? Because whatever is triggering the anxiety, I still want you to learn how to figure that out. We still got to figure out how to manage that because you still live in the world.
Right.
The reality is you still live in the world. We got to figure out how to get to the core issue here. And very honestly, I have clients who they still smoke, and I'm very aware that they smoke, but it doesn't change whatever the goal is.
Right.
Whatever the goal is, we're still working on that.
Yeah.
And I'm helping them not use weed as the first line of defense. So, and that's part of kind of, if you want to use it in medication terms, kind of weaning off or titrating off a little bit. We don't want that to be the first line of defense all of the time because it never allows you to actually function in the world in a healthy way. And one thing a lot of people don't know when it comes to marijuana and some other drugs too, the longer you use it over time, it can actually increase anxious symptoms.
Yes.
So if you started smoking it for anxiety and then you feel like your anxiety is getting worse, then we're going to have a real face-to-face conversation that I know you want to hear, but we're going to talk about how this weed is actually making that worse. So we need to cut back on that a little bit.
And I want to add something about that too.
I love that response.
I want to add something about that too, so people can understand as well. Now, I know we're not going to go into all this, a whole conversation on marijuana, but again, people have to understand that there are different strains of marijuana. So if you're smoking a certain strain of marijuana and you do not know what that is, and you got it from Pookie on the corner, you do not know what you're smoking. You do not know what strain that is, more than likely. So when you're self-medicating with something that's kind of uncontrolled.
Yeah.
Something that you don't know specifically what it's going to do and how you're going to be able to manage your situation. That's the difference between you being prescribed the medicine, from maybe somebody like Miss Adams, where she can tell you specifically what this medication is supposed to be for, and she can give you dosages of the correct dosage, and that it might take a little while longer for this to kick in, but when it does, it's going to do its job.
Right.
Well said.
It's not it's a calculated risk.
Yes.
And that's, I guess that's the problem. One of the downsides to self-medicating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're definitely.
Angel, how do you approach, because some medications can become addictive, right? And so how do you approach an individual where that is also their wall up? I don't want to do that because I don't want medication. I don't want to become addicted to something. I'm not addicted to anything now. So no. So how do you approach that?
Yeah. That's why it's really, really imperative to get a good history on a patient. What is the family history?
Mhm.
You have someone that's had issues with addiction. How's the relation? Is that your mom or is that your fourth cousin? So once I kind of break down to them, that the family history, if you have it, if you don't, the statistics of you even getting addicted, I mean, you're pretty much already saying, I don't want to take it. So the chances are you probably won't. Because it really is a gene. And it does have something to do with your environment, like what you see. And if you've seen that, then of course you're more apt to do it. But I just really try to get that education piece in for my patients and let them know. Like I said, I'm really big on statistics, and spit that out to them and just let them know this is the benefit is outweighing the risk at this time. So just building trust and rapport.
Did y'all hear her? Addiction, the addictive trait can run. You can from your genes.
Yes.
Like
yes. Yes,
That's true.
absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people don't even know that.
That's true. I've seen it. I've seen it run rampant, and certain persons. Of course, I'm not going to say their name, but I know their family has a history of drinking. So when this person got of age and began drinking, you start to see them turn that corner of going right down that same path. And I think we have that mindset of it won't happen to me. I'm different. I'm different. And it go and they don't realize that it's genetic. It's a genetic tie to it, and they go right down that same path. So I think that's important that people know that as well.
Yeah, and it's like the X factor. You can keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. You never know when it's going to get you. Just like cancer. You can keep firing up that black, fired up. That 500th time, you've got cancer. It's the same thing with mental health. You can think you can outrun a certain disease, but it runs in your family. And it could be the fifth time you do it. That's it.
Right.
You're dealing with it now.
So it's important, I think, you guys create this therapeutic process for your clients, and I'm sure that comes with a lot of processing. Like, how do you guys process this? Because you're in it as what you're the captains of the ship. How do you guys process dealing with all of this on a day-to-day basis as it's your profession? How do you deal with that? I'll go with Lauren first, since I didn't throw a name out there. Go ahead.
Probably the biggest step I had to make, because what you're talking about is really self-care for us, right? So the biggest step I had to make in order to make sure I was balancing work and life, taking care of myself, not carrying this stuff home, I had to go into business for myself. I had to stop working for other people.
Right.
That really helped me take control over how many clients I saw, how often I saw them, who I would accept as a client, who I wouldn't. So taking control over my caseload really helps me, because I'm choosing who to work with. Therefore, I'm limiting myself to only dealing with certain issues,
right,
and addressing certain needs. So going into business for myself was the very first thing. Also, I'm very strategic about how many clients I see a week. I know where my threshold is, and I know when I start to, what's a good description? I start to run low. My battery starts to run low.
Yeah.
And very recently, I did a video explaining to people who don't understand, and Angel will probably understand this. I had a work day where I only saw 4 clients. So that's the equivalent of just 4 hours. And then you add about 45 minutes of paperwork. To the average person, they're going to be like, you're not even working a full day. Like, why are you tired? But I was trying to explain how physically and mentally drained I was just from those 4 sessions.
right.
And they weren't even all back to back. But the toll it takes is so heavy. And this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning about how all of these parts make up mental health and well-being. So although I might have just been sitting in my chair using a lot of mental and emotional energy, it's still energetic. So it still drains me physically. Yeah. So I have a limit on how many clients I can even see in a day.
Right.
So going into entrepreneurship, limiting how many clients I see in a day. And I stopped working on the weekends. So for me, those are the 3 biggest things I had to do to just kind of help me manage the work-life balance.
Right.
And I think over time with experience, processing the emotional intake becomes better and better. So like
Right.
the longer you do this work, the more you do this work, you are able to kind of separate yourself from what's happening with the client, and you get better at that. So I truly can turn off the Zoom, turn off the camera, and I can leave that where it is. And I don't carry that with me. But again, I think that has just come with the experience of doing the work.
That therapeutic process, everybody has to find that. Angel, same thing, because I know you guys got to find that balance, and there's somewhere to deal with all of the stuff you guys got to deal with.
Yeah, it's similar to exposure therapy, you know. So I'm doing this day in and day out. I've become more used to it. I am able to process things just quickly and just leave it where it is. I don't work as much like Lauren. When I started my business, I was grinding, you know, Monday through Friday. And then I soon went Monday through Thursday. And now I'm like Monday through half day Thursday.
Like maybe
Maybe
Thursday.
tomorrow, let me think about it.
You know, because it's heavy. People are depending on us to always be here. And I tell my patients, even before the visit, this is not an emergent clinic. You can't reach me at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And then when you don't, get mad at me. That's not what I'm here for.
Right.
You know, I'm here for scheduled appointments and to help you when you need to. You send me an email, I'll answer it in a timely fashion. But this is not a boutique business, and you can have it your way. You know, so the boundaries are very important to have when you're in this profession. And it's something I used to struggle with because I did not like telling people no. Believe it or not. I don't know if that shows, but it's something that I really had to learn, and it's definitely worked in my benefit. So
that goes back to what we kind of talked about earlier, where creating that healthy environment, that's not only just for the client, but that's also for you guys. So you can express to people sometimes, yeah, man, you gotta do this, you gotta push that aside, you gotta say no to that, or put this to the side. Like, it's okay to take a mental health day, or go exercise, or go do something that you find that is good for you and puts you in a healthy space. And it's crazy because when you make that decision, people start to act like, you know, they more important than your your healthy space. You know what I mean? So you gotta be careful.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, you know, I guess we don't have to go deep into it, but what's a no for you guys? Like, what makes you say, I talked to this client, they had a conversation with them, their potential, no. So, Lauren, what's a no for you? What's an automatic no?
Potential no.
What's an automatic no?
Well, first of all, okay, let me give you the professional answer first. There are some there are some diagnoses and some life issues that I am not trained in. So I have to work from my scope, and essentially I have to stay in my lane. So a lot of times, and this is good for anybody who's looking for a therapist too, you need to pay attention to what your therapist addresses. So on their profile, they should have a list of issues that they address. And a lot of people, they want to have a therapist that looks a particular way. So if there's a Black woman looking for a Black woman therapist, sometimes the client will get excited and just book an appointment, not realizing, hey, unfortunately, I am not skilled in couples work. I don't do family therapy. I also am not skilled in treating mental health disorders that are a result of medical conditions. So there are some medical conditions that can attribute to. So there are just some things that are out of my scope. And I need to refer you. Ethically, I need to refer you because I'm not trained in working with people.
Right.
Now, outside of that, if it's not diagnosis based, if I'm getting a lot of pushback for what I'm suggesting that you practice or you try, and you're not doing any of that work, but you're coming in and expecting me to do miracles for you, I'm probably going to suggest that you work with another therapist. If if you don't respect my boundaries, since Angel brought up boundaries, if you don't respect my
Saying
boundaries,
no.
meaning the time of your appointment, and I give you a 15-minute grace period.
Oh,
Okay. If you're not respecting those boundaries, and I'm getting angry emails, like Angel was talking about, phone calls, and they want to dispute late cancellation fees, you know what? You might be better served with another therapist. So there are just some things where, look, I'm going to have grace for you, and I'm really going to try to, again, meet you where you are. But if you don't respect my boundaries, or if you're outside of my scope of practice, ethically, I need to be referring you to somebody.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That therapeutic relationship has to be right.
I think one question we kind of missed out on early, and I just want to address this right quick, ask this quick question. How does a patient know if they're unwell? I know you said earlier, you mentioned well. How do I know if I'm unwell? How do I know if I'm not doing okay? How do I know if I need therapy? Lauren?
I was going to say two things that I hear happen with my clients a lot of times is usually they feel different. So it's a feeling they have, right? And everybody experiences that differently. So somebody could come in and they feel very different than they did the years prior, and they're not sure what's going on, or they're not moving in the world the way they used to. They'll identify things that they used to do and they stop doing them, or things that used to bring them joy and it doesn't bring them joy anymore. So they'll notice a feeling that could bring somebody to therapy. Then I've had clients who the people in their lives have told them, you need to go there. And when I say people in their lives, especially when it comes to youth and adolescents, okay, now I don't work with young people because that's another area that I can't do. I learned that early on. That is not my spiritual gift.
He's like, I'm good. Like I can't deal with that.
But one thing I did learn about working with young people is a lot of them came to therapy because their friends were going to therapy. So it became very trendy. So those are two things I see a lot. Either people feel like something is different and it brings them in, or somebody in their life has told them they need to come in. Now, other times it'll be a medical professional. So they might have started with medication first with Angel, and maybe Angel has worked with them and Angel said, you know what, I think you need to include therapy in your treatment, and then they'll get referred by their medical professional.
Okay. Yeah. Angel?
Yep, she hit all of them. I mean, basically not feeling themselves, the shell of their body, hygiene has declined, or you're sleeping a lot. Sleeping a lot is a sign of feeling different, or you're not sleeping at all. Yeah. Or my mother said this, and I'm acting this way. My husband said this. Those are usually the reasons why.
Okay. Okay, that's good to
know.
Don't
forget the kids. The kids will take you to the therapist too.
Yes, Lord.
Don't forget the kids.
Lord. Them ungrateful little. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
This guy. I also.
What I don't know. Okay, so what gives someone, when you guys diagnose or approve of someone to have an emotional support animal? How does that happen? How does that get to that point?
Well, I know there is like a more strenuous way that I don't even worry about to get that ESA going on with your animal. But for me, most of my patients already have an animal, and they want to take them in a space that makes them feel whole, so to speak. So I think the airports are actually banning the animal. I know a lot of the big ones can't take it, but I know in LA maybe the restaurants, it's popular to have your dog sitting right there while you're eating. How wonderful is that?
Lauren said what? Yeah. I've had a lot of people calling in trying to get that approved by doctors, and doctors say no. Go, if you're seeing a psychiatrist, therapist, or something like that, then you need to go talk to them and get that taken care of. So I'm like, what takes them there to that level?
Yeah. So basically, like I said, they already have the animal, and generally, I do have the credentials to provide them with a letter that say, hey, this is what they have, and this is the purpose of the animal. It provides them with calmness and this and that, and they go about their business and show their letter to whoever they need to. And a lot of times it's just they won't have to pay a deposit in their apartments as well. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, you did.
Okay. Yeah.
You did.
So yeah. So Lauren, do you do that?
No, and I was gonna say
Okay.
that is again outside of my scope.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Lauren got a lot of
Yeah,
notes.
good.
Look, you
Lauren
need
know
to
how to
learn how to
take
stay in
notes.
your lane, because that's one of the biggest mistakes I feel like I see in novice therapists who are very excited about coming into the field. They want to help everybody. Like we all come out
Yeah.
of grad school wanting to be amazing change agents and change the world. But it's like, sis, you didn't get the training on that. So you need to kind of fall back. But I've had clients that have reached out to me asking if I would do that. And first I want to say there's a difference between the training to make an animal an emotional support
Right.
animal and then having a mental health professional confirm that you need it.
Right.
Those are two different things.
There, yeah, it is.
So, and again, I think Angel commented on having the credentials to do that. You also have to have, I don't know if it's a formal training or something to actually know how to assess that. So even though I've worked with you and I might see that you do have some emotional dysregulation, I don't know if I can accurately defend why you need an emotional support animal for your particular emotional symptoms.
Right.
I don't think I can do that for you. I don't know how to do that for you. So, and then sometimes in all honesty, and Angel, I don't know if this happened to you, I get annoyed, to be honest, when clients seek me out just to complete paperwork for them, and I've never worked with you. I don't know who you are. You're not my client.
That I think that's my number. When I have days where I want to quit the mental health professional altogether, it's absolutely because someone has come to me for some paperwork.
Right.
Hands down, I can't stand it.
Is it like offensive? Like it's kind of like, here, sign this.
Yes. Yeah. So
it's offensive. Okay, wait a minute. Let me regulate my emotions real quick.
Everybody breathe in.
It does, and I'm not gonna speak for anybody else, but I do feel like, and this is internalized, this is me recognizing this is my stuff. I do feel like the work that I do is sometimes trivialized to the point you think you can just give me a packet of paper and tell me a story. And then I'm going to say, yep, this person needs FMLA, and yep, this person needs paid time off for this. I'm not going to do that. Have I done that for my clients? Yes, I've done that with established clients that I've been working with, and I'm familiar with what the insurance companies are looking for. I understand the language that will either get them approved or not approved. So again, it's within my scope of practice. I know how to complete that paperwork. I know what they need to hear. Because people don't like giving away free money, but I know what they need to hear in order to make sure my client gets the time they need to properly heal. But that's my client. I've been working with you. You've got some sessions under your belt. We've got some time together.
Right.
Don't come to me first session and then ask, can you fill this out for me? Now, I'm not going to boot you to the curb. I'm not going to immediately refer you. What my policy is, if you request that at the first session, I'm going to tell you I need to have met with you at least 4 to 5 sessions before I will consider completing that documentation.
And that's important because, again, creating that relationship is important. And I think even with our topic for tonight, creating, the beautiful mind, all of that is part of it, because if I'm interested in seeing you whole or operating in a great space, then there's just certain things I'm going to allow and certain things you aren't going to allow. And I think that that's just part of the process in the relationship.
Yeah, you're right.
Mental health professionals are not notaries, people. You cannot just show up to them, pay them a fee, and have them sign paperwork. That is a notary, not a mental health professional.
Folks, you are dealing with, I don't want to call them crazy, but you are dealing with folks who are unwell. So they're going to try, I'm sure, to do unwell things.
It ain't even got anything to do with being unwell. Let me tell you, they do it to the doctors on the regular all day when I'm at work.
I would agree.
Be mad about it. They want that paper signed today because they don't want to go to work tomorrow.
Right. There are career.
They want to go somewhere else besides work.
They do. It's gotten out of hand.
It has.
Really has.
Well, because we're in that space of where mental health has become huge. I don't want to say people are using it as a crutch,
You should, because they
but
are.
yeah, some
Right.
people are using it as a
Mhm.
crutch because it's something. And just like with anything, once man touches, we're gonna get some corrupt stuff going on,
Yeah.
right? So
Uh-huh.
but again, that kind of takes me back to the relationship that you should have with your therapist or your clinician or your doctor or whichever one. But there should be an established relationship there for things to so things can flow naturally, I would think.
Yeah.
Benji, that's the message. Okay,
Right.
that's the word. Because I don't want to anybody listening or watching, I don't want them to be arguing with us saying, well, I legitimately need time off from work. Work is stressing me out. It is. People are going through a lot of stuff at work. And the whole work-life balance that corporate likes to use is a sham because they're not really offering work-life balance. So a lot of people do need it.
Right.
But you need to establish a relationship. If you're saying you need this time to really heal, work on yourself, reflect, take some time to figure out life, organize your life, then do the additional work of getting somebody that is skilled in that to help you do that. Because a vacation to Jamaica is not going to help you do that if you really got an issue going on that you need to work on. You're not taking
that vacation only gonna last for a little while.
Right. You're not taking leave from work and getting these people to pay you while you're gone for 2 months just so you can stay in the house and not actually do the work. Like work with a professional, get them to help you. Make the investment. It is a mental and emotional investment in saying, I truly do want to improve the status of my life.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to do. Don't just get the paperwork signed and then go home. Like it's not doing anything.
Hey, we got some folks on here who are gonna tell y'all what's up for real. Like they ain't gonna play games with you. So
like old folks say, tell you like it TI is.
What they trying to say is they see you for who you are when y'all doing that.
We ain't going for it.
Right.
Facts. Okay, I have a quick question too. To kind of switch gears a little bit. I just always think about and I hear about so many people, and even in my own family, I know my dad, he might be watching. He watches sometimes. He watching What's Up, Pops. Just hearing his stories, and he's almost 70, and hearing his stories about his life, we kind of pinpointed some of the things that he's having issues with, even at the age of almost 70. It is rooted in his childhood. You're talking about a long time ago. So are there a large portion of people that you see, that you talk to, that you treat, and you figure out that a lot of their issues are rooted in childhood trauma?
Yeah. Lauren, you're pretty trauma based, so I'll let you answer that.
Unfortunately, yes. Especially if you're dealing with someone who has complex trauma. So complex trauma can typically include multiple different types of trauma across the lifespan, or a particular trauma that existed for a duration of time in the lifespan. A lot of that stuff starts in childhood. And what we learn about ourselves, people, and the world, and emotions starts with what was modeled for us in childhood. So if I adopt that in my youth and nothing ever challenges that, nothing ever forces me to deconstruct that, then that kid becomes a young adult practicing the same thinking and behavior, becomes an adult practicing the same thinking and behavior, becomes an elder practicing the same thinking.
I like that. I like that word you used there. Someone has to challenge that behavior or that issue. I love that thought, because if it goes unchecked, it's just it can do you can do anything.
Yeah.
And it's two opposite examples I want to give you all, because a lot of people think trauma is only the threat of death. Trauma is not only the threat of death. In terms of how we diagnose it, trauma can be something you witnessed, you learned about. It could be threat of death. It could be physical injury. It could be sexual violence. It could be exposure to war. It could be any catastrophic event that has disrupted you emotionally or mentally. And those of us who work in trauma will liken it to a brain injury, because usually what happens with trauma is it disconnects how we should regulate emotion and really deal with stressors. Because of the trauma, we don't deal with those things well. So someone can have a traumatic experience Simply, I say simply, but the example I'm going to give you is not simply witnessing a parent experiencing domestic violence, right? So that child might not actually be receiving the abuse, but they're witnessing it and they're seeing it. That is traumatic.
Mhm.
And if it is not supported or treated, it could develop into PTSD.
Yeah.
But what also happens is that kid, you can't now erase what this child has learned about relationships, because there's a bigger message that is being picked up. Not only is the child learning something about physical punishment or consequences, they're also learning about that in the context of what is supposed to be a loving relationship.
Yep.
Right.
Now imagine what that kid does in relationships growing up.
Right.
Mm.
We
So-
mimic what we see.
Mhm.
There's so many, and it might not even be the mimicking, it could be the receiving of it. So
Mhm.
you might become physically abusive, and it doesn't happen to everybody. So I don't want everybody to hear this and say, well, you're saying that I'm going to become a wife beater. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, having witnessed that as a child, it impacts how you move into relationships. And it impacts how you see the other person in a relationship. It also impacts how you regulate emotion and how you communicate emotion. All of that is traumatic.
Right.
And the child didn't even receive the physical assault, but they did receive it emotionally and mentally, and that impacts the brain.
Mhm.
And of course, on the more extreme end that most of us know about, war would be a really extreme version of that. That's what most people are familiar with when they think about trauma. But again, that might not have happened in childhood. That might not have happened until you were a young adult. But the intensity of that, the complexity of that threat, that real threat of death, witnessing sexual violence, having to witness murder, all of that is very disruptive too, in terms of how you understand the world. And it disrupts your entire concept of justice in the world too. So there's so many layers to how trauma affects people.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a lot to that's a lot to unpack. That's a whole show within itself.
Yeah.
And
But think about it. Somebody goes through some version of this in multiple different ways in their life, whether it's your house being broken into, a horrible car accident, a death you witnessed or had to deal with, or sexual assault, physical assault, like somebody in some ways dealt with it somewhere.
Mhm.
I think another big thing is abandonment. A lot of kids I know, and adults can deal with this as well, but a lot of kids deal with abandonment issues as kids, and they never deal with it, and they go along in life feeling unwanted because they were abandoned as a kid. And then when you become a teenager, we all go through a stage of rejection, whether it's in relationship or friendship, and they never learn how to fully function or fully deal with not being accepted by somebody because of simply that seed that was planted in them as a kid, from when a parent dropped them off at grandma's house and never came back, or or just abandoned them, or they knew they had a parent and then the parent put them in the foster system. So many different scenarios. But I've seen that as well, and because when I first started out in my professional career, I started out in education as a teacher. I saw that a lot, and especially as a coach. You coaching, these young men, you hear those stories. They're going home, they don't have people, they don't have support, and you're wondering why, because these people have, quote unquote, abandoned these kids. So I've seen a lot of kids deal with that as well.
So, Angel, through those experiences, that can create psychosis, right?
Are you saying the trauma?
The trauma or whatever traumatic experiences, whatever it may be, those can create psychosis, right?
It can. I won't say it's like the majority.
Right.
Something that will happen, but it absolutely can.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It can.
Okay, can we break down what is psychosis for the people out there in the audience who don't know what that is?
Yeah, so psychosis can be any type of hallucination, whether it is auditory or what we call tactile. That's when you can feel things, or vision wise or visual, where you see things. That's a form of psychosis. Also, being delusional is a form. Some people can think they're God. That's a form of delusion, or just thinking just anything that's not like the social norm, pretty
Right.
much just could be a delusion. So that's pretty much psychosis wrapped in a nutshell. You're just not really thinking amongst what we consider social norms. You can go to other countries and some things be normal for them. So you can't automatically say it's psychosis. But here in America, where we all are, we pretty much know what the social norms are.
Okay.
So that's what that would be. And it can come from birth. As we know, we've already talked about genetics and DNA, how you can be born that way, or it can be induced by drugs. Drugs can do it, and continued trauma or stress or some type of anxiety can also induce these symptoms as well with the hallucinations and the delusions.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's interesting because if you walk around with now you're not talking about a God complex, are you? Are you just talking about a person who
A
literally
person who
believes in
literally
God?
thinks
They,
like, yeah, they think they're God, and you should
yeah.
praise them, so
David
that
Koresh.
seems
Yeah,
to
we.
be like
I was just
religion.
about to say the same thing, Ken. David
Religion
Chris.
is one of the primary delusions that people tend to have when they're in that state of mind.
Yeah.
Something along the religious or sexual, something sexual. That's very common as well.
I think for the person that I know, he's in jail because he's bipolar schizophrenic and psychosis. He hallucinated, heard
Mhm.
voices that told him to take on this act that he did do, which led him to end up being in jail for 25 years.
Right.
But
Mm,
it all was not off meds or not, self medicating, all those
mhm.
different things. And then in came the hallucinations and the voices and him thinking that these voices was, that's the logic, that's the only way. And
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
it. Mental
Yeah.
health, y'all. It's serious.
Right.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate because our brains is different sections of the brain, and we respond to different things just on the chemical makeup of it. So when you're hearing voices, part of the brain, it seems so real because it's being activated.
Right.
And so you hear these things, and no one can tell that person different
Yeah.
that this voice is not real. So they can go commit crimes, under the
You'll
impression that
testify,
that
right?
Mhm.
hmm that they were
God
told to
told
do
me
that.
this, or whatever that complex
Yeah,
is.
Yeah.
God told me to do it, or yeah,
And
or
That's what they said. The voice told them to do it.
hmm
and
Hmm.
with
and
these
it's
type,
loud, and it's overbearing.
Right.
It's and it repeats itself over and over. It's like
Yeah.
you can't break away from it. So imagine that.
Right.
Right.
and with these type of situations too, it made me think about our because we also associate mental illness with violence. When we hear about these mass shooters and things of that nature, we often, the first thing we're going to question is what was this person's mental state
Right.
while they were doing this, and mental illness is also often associated with violence. So are people with mental illnesses more prone to be violent, or do you think that they're prone to react to violence as victims? Like which side of that is more often to happen? Lauren?
Okay. I'm trying to like dissect in my head what you just said. Okay, so you said they commit a crime basically due to a mental illness, or what was the other one?
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think when people are violent,
Hmm.
a lot of times they either are violent because of the mental illness, like you said, the voices in the head and things of that nature. But I was
Right.
saying, is it more of, do you see more of that? Or do you think a larger portion of, is it like kind of like a bully situation where this child is bullied
Okay.
or this person is bullied or this person feels pressured and then they become violent? Like which
Yeah.
section is more of, of what you would see,
Hmm.
more prevalent, as they would say?
I'm gonna say it definitely is the whole mental illness, or I wouldn't say it's necessarily a diagnosis that you have all the time, but there's something going on that's leading to maybe you being like clinically diagnosed with something. So it's something there that is wrong, hands down.
Right.
I don't think it's more prevalent of the reaction type of thing. You're bullied and so you go shoot up everything. No, I think it's something. It's trauma, childhood. I just seen something recently, a statistic for PTSD, military PTSD to be specific, that 80% of those that do have it has had some type of childhood trauma. The ones that have not really experienced any childhood trauma fare pretty well as far as the PTSD in later life. So, when you're a child, everything's developing, everything is more impressionable to you. So I think that really gives leeway to really let you look into how important it is to make sure the environment that a child is growing up in is as safe as it can be.
Right. So that brings us to this thought, because
Well, hold on. Let Lauren respond.
Go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
So I think your question is a very good question, and it actually stirred up something in me, because I think it speaks to how important it is for people to allow mental health professionals to address certain issues. And I also think it's really important that as a culture and society, we try to educate ourselves a little bit. There's only so much you can do outside of actually going to school to do the work, because I think a lot of people have a fear that mental illness equals violence. And those two things aren't mutually, is that the expression, mutually exclusive? Having a mental illness does not automatically equal violence.
Yeah.
And not every violent person has a mental illness. And I think our fear is what drives us into believing that someone with a mental illness will be more prone to violence, but that's not always the case. It's our ignorance often drives that, because we are scared. And what can happen sometimes, not all the time, but what can happen sometimes is when someone is living with a mental illness that is not being treated, comes into contact with somebody who is dangerously ignorant about mental illness, this combination can create violence. But the person with the mental illness by themselves is not always innately violent. Are there some diagnoses that when they go untreated can have the potential to be violent? Yes, but even then it's the potential. It's not going to be automatic. When you think about the number of homeless people, well, you all are not with me, but the number of homeless people in Atlanta that are actually living with mental illness is great. It's very high. How often are you hearing the homeless just attacking people left and right? That's not common. That's more rare. And even then you got to figure out what was the dynamic going on that led to that. Well, usually it's because their mental illness, in the case of a hallucination, if it's auditory, could be leading them to believe this person's trying to steal their food. Or maybe this person's trying to steal their tent. Or, there are just so many things, because then you have to ask the person who is not struggling with the mental illness, why were you in Tent City? Like, what were you doing walking around in this area that is primarily homeless? There are just so many other things. So I want to make sure people understand that a mental illness does not make you innately violent. Just like every violent person does not have a mental illness. The circumstances play a huge part in that. And it even makes me think of certain adults and children who are on the spectrum. So even with autism spectrum disorder, some people are very, very nervous around more severe spectrum people. So the more severe autism spectrum disorders, who might have trouble articulating, verbalizing, have more developmental issues. Some people can get very scared because they don't know what that child or that person is going to do. But the reality is they're also a little frightened of you because of the same reason. So if you don't know how to meet their need, if you don't know how to communicate with them, then you are creating what could be a dangerous situation simply because of the ignorance of it.
Now,
That was good.
I'll give an example on it. So the story, the one that did that got me in jail, it was triggered by a person that he lived with who knew he had this mental illness, who would just hit all the triggers, everything. So he felt like he was stuck. He felt like he had no way out. He felt like this person. So eventually his own mind and, his mental illness created this voice and these other things, hallucinations, to help him. In his eyes, this was the way out. So, but after I heard the whole thing and everything that went on with it, they said it was in the newspaper 1.5 years ago, but he was a victim. At the end of the day, he didn't just decide he wanted to go be violent. Like it was all these things over the years that he was getting mental abuse, verbal abuse, all these different things that then his mind was like, okay, well, this is the only way out. So it's not the fact that he was bipolar schizophrenic, so therefore they're going to go do this and that. It was this plus this led to this, and this was the action. So it isn't always mental illness equals violence at all.
What would you say is give us something a person with a mental illness or even just mental health issues, period, can do that's healthy? What would you recommend for them? I know we're going to get meds subscribed for them, those types of things. What would you recommend that they do that's healthy for them?
Okay, we've already touched on exercise. Obviously, therapy. There are apps out here now. Social media big. You can get on. There are books, and not just self-help.
Right.
That's not the end all be all with mental health, and just creating a healthy environment. The friend is not the professional, but someone that you can express yourself to, getting things off your chest, the professional way and the friend way. That's great. That's a good balance. So those are some things that you can do.
All right, Lauren, give us a few more in there.
Were you thinking it? Okay, ask the question again, Benji, because I was going to a place where I don't know if that's where you were going.
Something the person with mental health issues or a mental illness, some healthy things that they can do on a day-to-day basis. We know they can talk to the therapist. We know they can get their meds. They can get their books. What are some healthy things that a person in that state can do?
Some holistic.
That's really broad because it really depends on what the issue is that you're dealing with. So I don't know if there's going to be like a one size fits all, but if we're talking just in terms of to increase the chances of having a healthy well-being and increase mental health, I tell clients you need to make sure you're moving throughout the day. So it might sound very cliche, but we need sun exposure. So if you work in a certain environment where you can actually take a break and go and get direct sunlight, that's hugely useful. So even if that means if you have to go in person for work, if you can take a 15-minute break and just walk a lap around the building in the sunlight, do that. It might seem short and quick, but you would be surprised what's happening in your body when you do that. For those of us who work in a seated position for a large number of the day, I have to make a conscious effort to get up between sessions and literally walk my stairs. So I'll get up, make sure I go down the stairs, up the stairs, make sure my blood is flowing. So getting that movement throughout the day is going to be really important. And also, it sounds old school, but it's very legit. You have got to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Got to.
And drink your water. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Water. Yay. There you go.
Oh, finally she brought out some water. I think that's the first time she drank water.
I had a little earlier.
I can't reinforce the sleep thing enough because there's so much happening in sleep. Like there's cellular turnover in the brain that happens in sleep. There are issues that get processed while we are sleeping. And a lot of times they show up in dreams. The body is recouping while we sleep. You have got to get sleep. And if you're not doing that, you can't even process information from your day in a healthy way. You definitely can't utilize what we're working on in therapy when you're sleep deprived and when you're not sleeping. So a lot of times in the early sessions with clients, I'm checking in on how they're sleeping. We're experimenting with binaural beats for sleep and bilateral music for sleep. We've got to get the sleep cycle in a healthy place to help with all this other stuff. Because a lot of times people are dysregulated because they're not sleeping well. Mm-hmm. They can't even handle the day because they're tired. They're tired mentally, emotionally, and physically. So you got to get some sleep.
Yeah, people got to understand your body is you are literally a Tesla, right? If you don't plug a Tesla up at night, why you supposed to be in the house sleeping and resting? When you get up in the morning and drive that Tesla, what's gonna happen? It's gonna run out. It's gonna run out of juice. You're gonna run out of juice if you don't get enough sleep at night. You're not giving your body chance to repair itself and go through the processes. So yeah, get some sleep, people. I'm talking to myself too. Yeah.
I'm like, y'all see me right now. I'm tired.
Right?
And see,
I'm going home and go to sleep in a little bit after I eat a lot
of people, they actually have to get a sleep aid, like a prescribing physician, depending on what the issue is, will add a sleep aid to whatever their cocktail is because they understand how important it is for that brain to get rest.
Yeah, I always ask that question, and a lot of my patients get surprised, like they're talking about everything in the world. I can't focus, this, and that. I'm always asking, what is your sleep routine like? Okay. And if that ain't right, I'm focusing on that. Number one, like hands down. It's very, very important.
And I'm pretty sure that's very common for so many people to say they do not get enough sleep. Because I know probably all three of us right now don't get enough sleep. Me, Ken, Benji.
I blame mines on the great poet Nasir Jones, and he has a bar in one of his rhymes that says sleep is the cousin of death. So, you know what I'm saying? Every time I sleep, I'm close to my last breath. So growing up, we interpreted that as, you know what I'm saying? Hey, you don't need all that sleep. You need to be hustling. You need to be working. But, hey, I'm 40 plus now. I'm like, hold on. That was in my 20s. Now I need a little bit of that sleep. So, you know what I'm saying? If I don't get the sleep, then it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be I'm getting closer to death because I'm not getting enough sleep.
Right.
Very true. And that is the truth behind it.
Yep. So before we get up out of here, we want to give the ladies an opportunity to give their information out so people can reach out on social media if at all possible. Miss Adams, you can go ahead and begin.
Yes, so you can reach me on my IG, Angel_Bonafide. I am licensed in Texas, so if you are in any other state, I cannot help you, but I can definitely give you good resources. For one, psychologytoday.com is great. You can filter however you want as far as what kind of therapist you want, or insurance and things like that. And also you can reach me Facebook, Angel L.A. Adams, or Angel Bonafide Talks.
Yeah, she's got a show now.
Yeah. I'm kind of, doing a little
Well, we appreciate you joining us today, and y'all make sure y'all hit her up and definitely follow her show. I was able to tune in. I forgot the gentleman's name, but I think he had been locked up for some years. Got out, was telling his story, and the episode was really enlightening. So y'all make sure y'all support her and tune in and reach out to her, because I know a lot of people in Texas they got some issues that they need to attack. So, maybe she can help you. So, all right.
Just don't be asking. Don't be bringing that thick packet asking for the notary to get it signed off. You got to build a relationship with, your therapist and the person dealing with your mental health. You got to build a relationship.
All right, Ms. Lauren.
Let's see, you can find me first on Facebook at Free the Mind Therapy. So if you search Free the Mind Therapy, look for my face. My face is the profile picture. I also have a website, www.freethemindtherapy.com, where you can find me. And I am also only licensed in the state of Georgia. So unfortunately, if you are looking for therapy or group work, I wouldn't be able to help you. However, if you are interested in having me train your staff to be more trauma-informed in the workplace, to have more work-life balance trainings, to really talk about what mental health looks like in a work setting, I am available for trainings. So you can contact me either on Facebook or you can email me at freedomisclear@gmail.com. I also have an IG page, but clearly I'm not sure what it is right now.
I'm about to say, do you use it?
Thinker.
I want to say it's the same. No, Benji, that's my personal one. Don't give these people my personal IG.
This guy.
My bad.
That's why it was Lauren's turn, not yours.
No, I think the IG is the same as the Facebook page. I want to say it's Free the Mind Therapy, but again, it'll be my face. So if you search me on Facebook or IG, you'll see my face. Oh, my favorite one is TikTok. Y'all follow me on TikTok.
Okay.
My TikTok is actually called Therapy for the Culture. That is not my face. The thumbnail is actually two black heads that overlap with an orange background, but search Therapy for the Culture. I do post videos, therapy, humor, and sometimes talk about real therapy-ish. So follow me on TikTok.
Okay.
Cool.
TikTok.
Yeah, the ticket of the tox. Okay. All right. Well, like I said, they gave y'all a lot of information today, and they helped us as well. And we just, are excited for them joining us for the second time.
Yes.
And hopefully we can make this a regular occurrence, because we know that this problem, that people have, and the stigma that mental health is, saying that this big no-no is not going to go away anytime soon. So we hope that the ladies will be able to join us again as we continue this crusade to try to get people to sign up for the help that they actually need.
You guys do an amazing job every time. I know it's only been twice, but amazing every time.
Facts.
Thank you. Yes, I enjoyed talking to you guys, and it's a pleasure meeting you for the first time.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
I know it's nice meeting you guys for the first time too.
Glad you can add that feminine energy into this.
Yes.
We definitely needed it. We definitely needed it.
We needed it. So we welcome the big head on over. So.
You don't stop talking about her forehead though, because I feel some residual attacks about that. I don't care.
I mean, listen, y'all ain't gonna come in here and bully me.
They gonna do what they want to, and you gonna sit back.
Boy, don't bully him. Now he gonna get violent.
Uh-oh.
And then come ask me to take him off.
Right? She said,
"Lids, huh?"
Well, don't bully him, because he's already height challenged. So they have the Napoleon syndrome. So don't do that.
You see, all four of y'all, I understand. So you can't make me feel less inferior.
Well, we don't, because you know what, Benji, you're my cousin, and I love you, man. So shout out to you. All right.
I just, I'm gonna mess with all four of y'all every last time. Just know.
You don't need a stool to brush your teeth, but it's all good.
Wow.
Y'all taking this to another level. I don't
do
well.
See, y'all can't be acting up.
I'm gonna get her. Don't worry about it. Her forehead is on full display tonight.
That's okay.
All right.
Better canvas to just look like this. We good.
Trisha Michelle, talk to the people right quick so you let them know where to find you on social media.
When I get done with Benji, I'm gonna need a therapist.
Yeah. I'll send you to therapy.
No, I just want to let everybody know, just look how easy it is to just talk. I know it's not always easy for everyone, but like she said, reach out to your friends. I'm always there for my friends. I'll be listening to them. But then I'll be going back and asking my therapist, look. And then I come back let me tell you. But I'll be the bridge when they don't want to go sometimes. So, just mental health. And I like Ken's shirt that says "Addicted to Peace." I'm not gonna lie. I've been staring at it the whole episode, because I swear that's my motto, peace. That's another thing. People be disrupting your peace and taking you all over the place. And then before you know it, your life is tore up.
Right.
Just listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to everything. Pay attention to the signs. And don't be afraid to speak up to anybody you trust. And you can find me on IG right there, Trisha Michelle _YT. Yeah.
Trisha, real quick, I just want to encourage you and invite you to start practice setting boundaries with your friends and remind them you are not their therapist.
Oh, girl, let me tell you.
You don't take on the weight of their stuff.
Oh, they get blocked.
No, I'm not equipped.
Be blocking everybody.
They get blocked. They get muted for the day. They get muted for a few hours. They be like, "You mute me?" Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because leave me alone. So that addicted to peace, that's still it. I'll be like,
All right.
Not today.
Benji Banks, the man, the brand. Talk to the people, man. Let them know where to find you at on social media.
You know, y'all can find me. I'm Instagram. Can't miss it. I mean, ain't too many people got my name. So if they got it, they're a fraud.
Benjamin Button.
But you can find me on Instagram at BRB4701. Benji Banks on Facebook. I ain't on TikTok. I did have a TikTok, but I got bullied into getting one. And I didn't really kind of operate on that joint. So, you know, it's like whatever. But you can follow me on Instagram. You'll find me there. You'll also find the ladies' profile on the latest ad. So if you go over to Instagram and you want to find them easily, just go on the new ad in there and you'll be able to find them and be able to connect with them as well. They are added on all the ads. So that's easy access for you there.
Oh, you really lost me for 2 seconds. I was like, who are you talking about? I'm here.
It ain't hard. How in the world do you get lost with that forehead? Everything's swirling in there.
Okay.
All
That's
right,
right.
y'all. All right, y'all. Y'all already know y'all.
Backstage.
Yeah, y'all save that for later.
Your legs ain't long, so you ain't gonna get far.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Y'all already know y'all can find me at Big Ken's Comedy on Twitter, Big Ken's Comedy on IG, Big Ken's Comedy on Facebook. Y'all can follow the Fiyah Session on all social media platforms. Just type in FIYAH and we'll pop right up. Make sure you go to YouTube, like and subscribe. Hit that little bell while you're there so that any new content we have, any new videos, any new shorts or whatever we post, you'll know about it because you'll get that notification. Again, we appreciate the ladies joining us today and giving us this amazing information. And like Trish Michelle pointed out, the shirt Addicted to Peace, this is a Big Ken design. This is what I do. I make my own shirts. So if you want one of these shirts or you want a shirt similar to this that says something that you wanted to say, holler at your boy. We can make that happen for you because we got the resources to do so.
Yeah.
So with that being said, again, y'all take care of your mental health, please. For yourself, first of all, and for the people around you, because we don't want to keep dealing with this foolishness. You can help it. We can help you. But most importantly, the professionals have what you need. So seek that professional help. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Continue to support us and show love and send people our way. We appreciate y'all.
For sure.
The Fiyah Session.
Bye.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Please follow us on all social media platforms. Just search Fiyah Session.